So this is our group member. The first is Muhammad Ali bin KAMARUDDIN. The next is Muhammad SYAMIL bin MOHAMMAD. The next is Muhammad AFIF AKMA bin AZMI. The fourth is NURAISYAH binti SHAHARUDDIN. And the lastly is ANISA binti NORDIN. For the introduction, economy is the study how people allocate scarce resources for production, distribution and consumptions, both individually and collectively. As the overview, economy is one that makes country become successful in financial. Like other countries in the globe, Malaysia has endured economic hardship due to the rapid spread of coronavirus COVID-19. The pandemic has a wide accelerating effect on the Malaysian economy. The economy was still grappling with the sudden recession that hit the majority of economic sector and placed the economy in uncertain situation. The COVID-19 affect the economy and job sector in Malaysia. In this video, we would like to share about how COVID-19 affect economy and job sector in Malaysia. Let's go.
I will present about how COVID-19 affect Malaysian economy and job sector, and my topic is unemployment rate. The increased number of cases in COVID-19 outbreak in Malaysia has resulted in an effect on the unemployment rate in Malaysia. Many companies, especially airline and tourism companies, have devised tactic to reduce the number of employers, either the terminating contract worker by providing a voluntary separation scheme or by firing worker by providing their operation and stop future losses, which rise the unemployment rate. During the lockdown implemented in Malaysia to curb the spread of the virus, give effect where most small businesses were unexpectedly forced to close their business. The key to economic performance is the unemployment rate. The labor market is more elastic in lowering unemployment as the economy expands. The upward trend through 2020, reaching 5.7% of movement control order on 19 March 2019 is caused the economy to trend downward and the number of individuals facing layoff surged significantly. In the second quarter of the pandemic, COVID-19, there was a significant increase in the unemployment rate, which increased by more than 40% and peaked at 5.1%. If the COVID-19 pandemic is not contained, Malaysia will suffer additional significant employment losses. Pandemic COVID-19 truly gave effect on the economy reflected in unemployment rate in Malaysia.
Stock market is the one thing important to all economy in country. The stock market broadly refers to a number of exchange and other venues in which shares of publicly held companies are bought and sold. During COVID-19, the positive effect of COVID-19 boosted the rapid growth and huge profit for the medical supplies and detergent sector, as well as the technology and the food sector, because the high demand for their products during the social isolation policy was unaffected. This affected the stock market in Malaysia economy that best and specific to medical sector like company that make medical good, for example, hand sanitizer, mask, face shield and others. The positive effect of COVID-19 boosted the rapid growth and huge profit to them. According to the Bursa Malaysia 2020, the listed company on the main stock market in Malaysia include 789 firms clustered into the entire sectors participating in the gross domestic production (GDP). The Malaysian stock market covers the main products of securities, derivatives and bonds. The Bursa Malaysia and Yahoo Finance Web reveals the development of the Malaysian market performance during the spread of COVID-19 is in diminishing trend and volatile stage. This diminishing pattern of Malaysian market may be attributed to last financial losses for listed companies that traded in the market stocks. There have been thinking about this not just the stock market, but the entire economic system also affect, like job sector. When people are laid off because of things such as company not having money enough to pay for them or their workers, so the people are not making the money, so the job sector in Malaysia will be decreased. As the study, if the labor is decreased, so the job sector, the output will be short. Also, in the study, output was a product because land, labor, capital and entrepreneurial ability are combined to produce goods and services, which mean output. They are also known as factor of production or simply inputs. If the company that joined in stock market is not have enough output or don't have enough money, so the stock market will be decreased and the job sector and economy of Malaysia will be down.
So today I would like to present about how COVID-19 affect Malaysian economy and job sector in terms of GDP, gross domestic product. The COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia had a substantial impact on the Malaysian economy, causing the Malaysian ringgit (MYR) to devalue and the country's GDP to fall. The pandemic also had a negative impact on various vital industries, including entertainment, markets, retail, hospitality, and tourism. Aside from shortage of products and services, many companies had to deal with social isolation and lockdown limitations, which hampered their activities and earnings. The pandemic also brought to light workplace safety issues and the abuse of foreign labour in Malaysian industry. Stocks on Malaysia's Bursa Malaysia fell during the outbreak as investors liquidated securities owing to the projected economic effect caused by the virus, which is predicted to last until June 2020, including other emerging economies. Because China is Malaysia's main trade partner, the country's economy has been adversely harmed, and economic experts are warning that a protected viral outbreak might have a significant impact on the country's gross domestic product (GDP). Aberdeen Standard Investments of Malaysia forecast in late February that the Malaysian ringgit (MYR) will drop further as a result of the local and global pandemic, with implications for the 2020 Malaysian political crisis.
Another economic performance indicator that is expected to be affected by the COVID-19 outbreaks is CPI. CPI impacted economic performance due to the negative impact of interest rate and inflation rate. Hence, economic performance becomes better if the government lower down the interest rate and inflation rate. One of the factors that leads to this result is declining import price resulting from less degree of international competition. This is supported by the fact that the pandemic leads to the emergency call to impose the lockdown, which negatively impacts consumers who mostly depends on local product. The lockdown is forcing most of the countries to restrict import. Therefore, COVID-19 outbreak is significantly affecting the volatility of CPI. Another factor that leads to the significant impact of COVID-19 outbreaks on CPI is the emergence of the inflation rate due to the demand push approach by consumer. It leads to an increase in food price. Further, this pandemic and the subsequent lockdown triggered shock to the both demand and supply. The effect of supply chain disruption, physical distancing, and interstate movement restriction on labor supply could lead to upward cost-push inflationary pressure due to the high cost of production. Similarly, the initial lockdown had shifted the demand patterns, which, if permanent, could alter firms' degree of market power and consequently impact the equilibrium inflation. Worsening the condition, inflation in the country has risen to a certain extent, although it is still manageable. For example, the pictures show the inflation rate in Malaysia for the past 3 years. The graph illustrates negative inflation right after first phase MCO implementation from March until December 2020, probably due to declining demand for goods and services, before showing an increasing trend starting from 2020 with the highest rate recorded in April. Consistently, the consumer price index that measures change in price paid by the consumers for a basket of goods and services has shown an increasing trend for the past 3 years. It is important to observe food price in CPI as it affects all consumers regardless of income level and jobs.
Okay, next, according to the authors Bagolin and Fright, the exchange rate volatility is more harmful if countries adopt a flexible exchange rate policy and financial openness. In general, exchange rate stability results in long-term economic performance. However, the majority of firms face foreign exchange rate risk, and their financial performance is directly related to the value of their overseas operations. The outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has a significant impact on the foreign exchange rates. One of the suggested reasons is the investor, particularly foreign investor, react collectively. Investors have no fear and have no panic in withdrawing or removing their foreign investment from the country. The outbreak of COVID-19 had no effect on the foreign exchange rate because central banks play an important role in currency control. Another possible reason is the export-to-import ratio. Due to the lockdown imposed by the majority of countries worldwide, trade has been slow, and demonstrated by them, the other 40 countries have a similar approach to Malaysia. Next, Ringgit Malaysia found stability with 4.1 prior to COVID-19, and the currency is expected to rise to 4.3 per USD in May 2020. However, until the end of the September 2020, the trend will gradually decline. As a result, the value of Ringgit Malaysia money is expected to fall in the future if COVID-19 cases persist. While currency-based measures have been eased to relieve pressure on the forex market because policymakers have lightened their stance on regulation aimed at foreign currency operation by banks. As example, limits on forex operation of brokers and dealers. Thank you from me.
Lastly, for conclusion, in the nutshell, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a very significant impact on the economy in Malaysia. The government announced a movement control order (MCO) to curb the spread of COVID-19 epidemic throughout Malaysia. Of the order has given many effects to the national economy. Among them are increased unemployment rate, field of gross domestic product (GDP), volatility of consumer price index (CPI), foreign exchange rate, and stock market. Therefore, the various efforts and ways done by the government to rehabilitate the country's economy. Among the efforts undertaken are made to give incentive to retrench people, control price and stock of essential goods, ensure the facts of foreign workers is maintained, and control all activities involving the people and the country are unsafe even the spread of this epidemic is curbed.
Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many workers were laid off, lost their employment, and lost their primary source of income. Therefore, it is recommended that the government launch the employment insurance scheme in order to minimize the impact of employment faced by the majority of employees. The program consists of one-off subsidies designed to encourage their financial management and help them overcome constraints. For the GDP, investment by the government, particularly in health sector, can raise GDP. It can also grow by taking on domestic debt. In order to decrease COVID-19 case and advance toward full recovery, the government will utilize the investment to acquire medication, expand the number of medical facilities, and purchase vaccine. Although there are few recommendations to raise CPI, one of them is maintaining the balance between supply and demand. By doing that, the cost of goods will stabilize, the rate of inflation will be kept constant, and the CPI will remain stable. In addition, for the foreign exchange movement, when COVID-19 cases are still pending, investors and currency traders should panic. They can examine further foreign exchange investment strategy such as forward agreements and hedging. And lastly, the stock market index performance. Investors should avoid from panicking in response to any uncertain business and economic news in order to increase the stability of stock market performance. Investors are advised to wait until the pandemic is finished before selling their share.